welcome to our DMAC Career Discovery event. We are excited to have the president and owner of Meeks with us today for our Ask a Professional session. So our hope is that these events are linking your education and maybe your career interests with professionals that work in those industries right here in Central Iowa. So we thank all of you for joining us today, and we certainly hope that you engage today too as well and ask questions. Before I introduce our professional, I would just like to say hello. My name is Jill Hoyk, and I'm accompanied by my colleague, Amy Stainhook, and we are both a part of the work-based learning team at DMAC. So again, if you guys have any questions at all, please engage in the chat, or you can certainly unmute yourself too, but we thank you for being here. But without further ado, I would love to introduce our professional. We have, like I said, the president and owner of Meeks, Doug Jeske, with us today. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Meeks, it's a full service branding, advertising, and marketing agency. So we're gonna get to know Doug a little bit. And so please ask him questions too. I will kind of facilitate questions, but we would love to hear from you because these events are for you all. So again, Doug, thank you so much for your time today and being here with us. I will just kind of open the questions up, and can you just kind of take us back to how you kind of got to where you are today? So from the beginning, how it all started for you. Now you're the president and owner of a company, but how did it all begin for you?
Well, I'm a farm kid from North Central Iowa, and I went to Iowa State University and majored in agricultural journalism, kind of combining that farm background with some interest in communications. Graduated from Iowa State and then went on to graduate school and eventually took a job with a company in suburban Chicago. And I worked in a corporate public relations function where I wrote for the employee newsletter, I did press releases, I did some speech writing, just a lot of different writing exercises for that particular company. And then I moved back home to Iowa and joined the advertising agency where I am today. I've been there quite a while now, 28 years, and eventually kind of grew in that agency, and I bought the firm in 2008.
Awesome. Can you explain a little bit more in depth what Meeks does kind of on a day-to-day basis and what clients you serve and that type of thing too, just to give the students a background?
Sure. Meeks is a full service advertising, branding and marketing agency, tries to tell our clients' stories in memorable ways. So we work with our clients through advertising that you might see on the internet, on television, in print publications, on the radio. We try to get positive publicity or media coverage in those media outlets. We develop websites. We do direct mail campaigns. We produce brochures and anything that helps tell a client's story. Some of our most significant clients include Hy-Vee, which is a big regional supermarket chain, of course. We also work for Farm Credit Services of America, which is a leading agricultural lender in the country. And then we work with some other clients, including Delta Dental, which is a dental insurance client, and have worked with those folks for quite a while.
Awesome. And can you just kind of talk about a few of the different careers that you have at Meeks? I know I was looking at your website prior to this, and there's quite a few, but just kind of a general who you have working at Meeks and the different entities that they do for you all.
Yeah, there's a range of roles. You might come to the agency and work more in creative functions, where you might do art direction and design. So designing ads, designing brochures, designing websites, or writing roles where you might develop copy for those marketing materials. You might come to Meeks and be an account service or strategy person where you work with our clients and understand their needs and make recommendations on what they should do from a marketing and communication standpoint. You might come to Meeks and be a web developer and help build websites and increasingly connect with the online audience. You might come to Meeks and try to figure out where clients should place advertising, whether that's online or in more traditional media. So web developers and people who plan media and people who write copy, people who does design, people who do strategy would be some of the roles that we have here at Meeks.
Awesome. Yeah, so students, if you are interested in any of those, he's the guy to ask the questions that you have. So please engage. What would you say a part of your career is your biggest win? Is it maybe owning the company, or is it something even before that you would consider a big win for you in your career?
Well, probably the biggest win was the decision to join Meeks in the first place. As I was, Karen and I, my wife, were looking to relocate back to Iowa. We were looking for various opportunities. I was talking with a couple different prospective employers, and it came down to a decision between a kind of a large company in downtown Des Moines, very established company, and then this small little advertising agency, Meeks. And it just felt, despite the maybe not quite logical expectation about that, it just felt like Meeks was the better place for me to be able to make a contribution and be able to have an impact. And it turned out to be a really good choice.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We had a question in the chat. What do you mean when you say develop copy?
So any kind of writing. So think of all the different ways you might come into contact with different forms of the written word. If you would read an ad in a newspaper, or read an article online, or hear a radio advertisement, or read copy on a website, any of those different forms where the written word would be something that a copywriter would do at Meeks.
Gotcha. Yes. Thank you. Good question. For those that work at Meeks, what would you say is kind of some personality traits that maybe a lot of your employees have to work in this type of industry?
I think they are people that take a lot of initiative, people who are looking for opportunities and want to excel. So that kind of also makes them a little bit competitive. It's a pretty competitive industry, and so you have to want to feel comfortable in that. So initiative, being a little competitive. In our business, where we serve clients, where we are trying to get new clients and keep new clients, you have to have a really strong orientation to being helpful and trying to serve those clients. So being able to read their needs, understand their needs, and then act on that. Having that real service mindset would also be another personality characteristic that's important to being successful in a business like ours.
Yeah, one thing that just being in the role that I am with advertising and marketing and branding, people have a lot of opinions. They either love it or they hate it. And I feel like you can't maybe take a lot of that personally, especially when you're working with the client, they, have something in mind. So that's one thing that I feel maybe have some thick skin to as well, just because there's lots of opinions always swirling around your work, I'm sure. So.
Indeed, and our clients ultimately get to decide. We
Right.
sometimes say they may not be right, but they get to decide. And you have to understand that that's the role that you play. You do your best work, and you have to do your best work every time. And sometimes it gets accepted and recognized for that. Sometimes it doesn't. But the next time you have an opportunity, you have to get, to use a sports metaphor, get back up in the batter's box and try again. So yeah, absolutely. Being able to deal with feedback, deal with different decisions, and still maintain that motivation and do great work all the time is really important.
Yeah, and Amy said listening probably is a huge skill too. Listening to your clients' needs and then producing a product that they will like. So absolutely. So for you, it's probably this question you're probably gonna laugh at a little bit, but as a president and owner of a company that's constantly like evolving and there's different projects and a million different things going around, kind of tell us a typical day, what a typical day looks like for you. And I know there probably isn't a typical day. Maybe it's different every day, and that's what you love about it. But just kind of walk us through a day.
Well, I think about my responsibilities in two ways. Am I working on the business or am I working in the business? And so when I'm working on the business, I'm trying to plan for longer term what we're going to do as an agency and with our team. So today, for example, I've carved out some time where I'm trying to think about how we're going to return to the office. We've been working remotely for 13 plus months. The team has been great, but at some point, we're looking to get more of our people back into the office more of the time. It'll never be like it was before, but trying to carve out some time to think about what might make the most sense for how we would return to the office. And then working in the business is, being active in terms of trying to think about a particular client need at the time. So today I'm working on a plan for our Hy-Vee client on one of their marketing initiatives. And so just collaborating with team members, and collaboration is a big deal. You do very little in an environment like ours without collaborating with other people on the team to build a plan that we're going to share with Hy-Vee tomorrow on what they can do with an initiative that's important to them. So it's a combination of working on the business, trying to think longer term, and working in the business, satisfying immediate plans or strategy responsibilities for a given client.
Awesome. Thank you. And then there was a question in the chat. Can you talk about some educations for certain positions like web design or graphic design? What are the certain requirements that you guys have?
Yeah, we would generally, but not always, look for people with a bachelor's degree as we would hire. That's not hard and fast requirement, but that's kind of a standard. And so people with degrees in graphic design, people with degrees in advertising, in marketing, in journalism, there are creative tracks in certain schools where you might develop that copywriting, some English. There are web development tracks as well. So those would be kind of the degrees: marketing, advertising, journalism, graphic design, communications more generally would be kind of some of the more popular educational backgrounds among employees at Meeks.
Yes. And then another question is, do you have jobs that are specifically dealing with social media development?
We do have probably just one person on our staff. It's not a huge part of our services that we offer, but it's one part. And so yes, we would have people that would actively engage in, that we call it community management, interacting with followers and people who like and posting content on social media sites. And then we have other people that it's not their full-time jobs, but they are developing content for those, whether it's a video, an image that would go on Instagram, a post that would go on Facebook or LinkedIn. So yes, more and more, even if our team isn't exclusively focused on social media platforms, there's more attention being paid to that kind of communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely, I think that's a part of everyone's career these days, is some sort of social media. What would you say that you find most enjoyable about your position at Meeks? Like, what is the best thing that you love?
I love being in a position to see how our team members react when their work gets to come to life. When they've had an idea for a client and it's presented and it turns into something that makes the client happy and performs well in the marketplace, and a little bit of them kind of has come to light, and it's nice to really be able to see that. For some of our clients, there's a long lead time between when you present an idea and when it actually might be in the marketplace and out for consumers or customers to see. With a retail client like Hy-Vee, you might come up with an idea today, and you might see it on a sign in a Hy-Vee store next week. It's a little bit more instant gratification, but watching people and their work come to life is really gratifying.
Yeah, that's great. And then on the flip side of that, what would you say is the toughest and maybe some challenges that you and or your company face day to day?
It's a rapidly changing communications world. And so you always have to be investing and staying on top of what the next new social media platform is, or what the next advertising opportunity is, because it's a competitive industry, and somebody else will do that if you're not. So you're always having to kind of stay on the edge of what's happening. And there are, in addition to those pressures and the competitive pressures, sometimes we talked about earlier, the work doesn't get approved, and you need to try again. And sometimes there's good reasons for that. Sometimes clients just get to decide. And so being able to deal with a little rejection, being able to deal with competitive pressures, being able to adapt to an environment, those can be tough things, or they can be motivating challenges, and you kind of have to be a person who welcomes those if you're going to succeed in an advertising agency.
Yeah. When a client decides to work with you all, I mean, do they come directly to you, or do you guys, like, I just think of like the construction industry where they do bids on certain, marketing pieces, I mean, like, how does that process work? Do they come to you and that's just how it works? I hope this is making sense. I'm probably not using the right lingo, but
Nope.
how does that process work?
Yeah, it can work both ways. We help our clients market themselves, so we hope we're good at marketing ourselves. So if we're doing our job, we are building our reputation among potential clients, and they recognize that, and then they come to us and ask us about potentially doing work. There's often a competitive bid, or it's called an agency review process that they go through to pick clients or pick an agency. But if we're doing it right, prospective clients are coming to us. Part of our marketing effort is direct outreach, where we go and identify people that we want to work with, and we contact them and try to establish a relationship as well.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. And then a question in the chat: if a client comes to you with an idea and you notice that there is something wrong with it, do you point it out? For example, if they don't have any diversity in a commercial, do you suggest they include some diversity into it to appeal to more people?
Yeah, one of the best things one of the more important things that clients look to agencies for is that outside perspective. They get very close to what they're doing and how they talk about themselves, and having an outside eye on what they do helps make sure that they're seeing things from the perspective of an average consumer. So we would certainly try to note those things. In the agricultural, for an agricultural client, we might notice that, oh, the way that photo is composed, it looks a little unsafe, and you might not want to convey that to the marketplace. Diversity would be a good thing that you would highlight. If a client is using too much jargon, words and phrases that are just known to them and that people wouldn't understand, we would try to point that out. So absolutely, part of what they're paying us for is to take a fresh view and look at things with a fresh eye.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that, because sometimes on, shows that are medical shows, and then they're doing all the things wrong, and real medical professionals that watch the show, they're like, that would never even happen. So it's similar to that. You got to kind of have an eye. Okay, another question. I love that you guys are engaging. Thank you so much. Another question in the chat. Are you guys a part of making the advertisement, or a part of the background, like how you will get the advertisement out there?
Yes, is a short answer. We could be involved in the writing and coming up with the idea for a television spot, for a television ad, as well as probably hiring an outside firm to go shoot or do the video on that ad and edit it, and then deciding what television station or what internet site it should be placed on. Any of those things. We don't necessarily do all those things with all of our clients, but we get involved with that full range, at least with some of our clients, at least some of the time.
And is that considered, when you say you're a full service, is that what that all includes when you talk about it, that you provide all of those, but you may not give the full service to each client, but you can, essentially? Is that what that essentially means?
Yeah, so it's the availability to pretty much handle a range of projects from beginning to end. And we might not do everything all the time, but we have the capability of handling a project like that. And full service would also mean we do advertising, we do web development, we do public relations or trying to get positive publicity, we do direct mail projects for our clients. So that kind of range of services would be the reason we would refer to ourselves as a full service agency.
Gotcha. Okay, we're getting a little bit shorter on time. So students, if you guys have any questions, please leave them now. I just want to know, is there maybe anything, a part of your career that maybe you would do differently? Like if you had the chance to make one decision differently, would you? Or are you pretty happy with all the decisions that you've made in your career so far?
I'm pretty happy with how things worked out. About 10 years after I joined the agency, I left for 6 months and went to another agency, and then decided to come back. And so I probably didn't need to make that step in my career, but I saw some things on another side, saw a different perspective, was able to get back to this place and continue growing there. So for the most part, I feel pretty good, feel very lucky about how things have worked out. I learned something from that. I don't know if I learned enough from that, so that'd be one I'd hold up as maybe something I would have done differently.
Yeah, that's great. And then just kind of, if for the students that are logging on today, obviously have some sort of interest in this career field, what advice would you give to young students, still in school, kind of, trying to figure out what they want to do? Are there any classes or any experiences or just any advice that you would give to them early on their journey?
Well, I want to first compliment everyone who's taken the time to join the call today. That's a really, I mentioned initiative earlier in the conversation. So you are obviously showing some initiative, trying to learn, trying to understand. I would also encourage you to um, reach out to people who are in businesses or professions that you might be interested in, um, and inquire about just having an informational conversation about what that person does. People like me, other people in our professions, they like to help people who want to sort out what they want to do and are usually pretty receptive to being able to give a little bit of their time to explain what they're doing and talk a little bit more. So the worst thing that can happen is you reach out and somebody doesn't have time or isn't willing to participate, but maybe, take that initiative. And I think a lot of professionals would be willing to have a 15-minute call or a 20-minute call to learn more. And then as you get on with things, you might ask about a job shadow, come out and spend an hour or two. And again, that takes a little bit more time and commitment, but I think a lot of professionals would be receptive to that. So the worst thing that somebody says is no. So take the initiative to reach out and explore further.
Awesome. And then do you guys at Meeks, do you guys have internships for students that are like in college, and when are those? And is there an application process, and how does that all work?
We do. Typically, most of our interns are summer interns, and they're typically between their junior and senior year or of college, though we've had younger individuals with internships. And occasionally we will have people who graduate and then take a 3-month internship with us, we have an opportunity to work with them, they have an opportunity to work with us. They're usually posted on our website, or we have an internship coordinator. So, you'd reach out to somebody at Meeks and just ask to, where a resume might be directed or how you would find out more about an internship, and we would direct you to our internship coordinator.
Awesome. That's great. And then why is the name Meeks? Like, is there a reason behind it? Does it mean something?
One of the co-founders of the agency was a gentleman by the name of Dick Meeks. And so it's an Irish surname. And so Dick retired a long time ago, but we keep his name on the door of the agency, and he continues to be a presence with us in that way.
Yeah, and Amy put in the chat their webpage, and if you guys go there, when I was working with Doug to set this up, I went to kind of look a little bit, and they have a little quiz on how to learn how to say their name. And so, and if you get through it, you can win a little prize at the end. So you guys should check that out. But you guys kind of already know the name now, so you guys have all the answers. But just check out their website, though. It gives a lot of information, a little bit more about what they do and all of that as well. So last call for questions, but Doug, we just want to thank you so much for your time and being here with us today to share your insight and your career and how you got to where you are today. I think a lot of students, being a president and owner of a company is something that young kids, have in mind. And so I thank you for sharing kind of your journey with us. We truly appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And again, want to thank all of you who've joined and compliment you for taking the initiative to learn a little bit more. Very best wishes to all of you.